All right, so hey, welcome back. I'm you, Buster Green. This is the Anime Tourist Trap Trip, and in this episode, I'm on my way to check out Toei Studios in Kyoto, home of the Super Sentai / Power Rangers Museum, the 1/1 Evangelion, and otherwise some old school classic ninja samurai attractions from the ancient days of Japan. Anyway, I was considering reviewing Tentaku, aka good old Osaka Tower, the radio tower from Pokemon Gold. But we got here pretty late at night after commuting all the way here from Awaji, and I didn't feel like going inside, so I kind of just had dinner here, and yeah, I don't feel qualified reviewing it. Nonetheless, I found the old Osaka district incredibly charming, and I can definitely see why so many people fall in love with it and have spoken of it greatly over the years. And it's crazy, but it does make a great alternative to Dotonbori if you're staying in Osaka for more than a single night. Now, I could definitely see myself going back here some more to explore it in a little bit more detail. It has great food and kind of a noticeable Vietnamese presence. Anyway, the next day we checked out our cool hotel and headed for our next destination, Toei Studios in Kyoto. Now, I wanted to get breakfast in Osaka, but we didn't have time, so we went on to Kyoto. And what's important was this was one of the only days we were traveling city to city with our full arsenal of luggage with us, which is painful. Now, Kyoto was trouble as there was no practical way to store our luggage here, and personally I also had no interest in staying at a hotel in Kyoto because past adventures coming here have historically proven it just to be a very difficult place to book a hotel. There's like no hotels with vacancies, and even if you find one, you're paying an arm and a leg. So up until now, we've gotten pretty lucky, even though we overdid it with our first day shopping, that we've mostly managed to transport our luggage from hotel to hotel without too much trouble. Except now we had all our luggage, and that was trouble. Now, yesterday, while transporting to Awaji, we had briefly stopped in Kobe, and while we were changing stations from train to bus, I saw a sign for something called Radical Storage, and it turns out they had one at one of the major stations in Kyoto we needed to use as a transit hub. So I tried on the spot to use Radical Storage in Kyoto to just get rid of our luggage, and we got to the station, I opened up the app, and I paid $20 to the app, and then I got very confused because the app seemed to indicate that it wanted us to bring our luggage to some random person's house. Now, this turned out to be entirely wrong, but I was semi-convinced it was maybe like an underground situation where maybe the train station had like an underground shopping mall or a tunnel, and that was what Radical Storage was, some sort of like sewer storage. But long story short, it wasn't the house. The app gave me the wrong address. So I took a few more minutes to soak in the information, and I eventually figured out what was going on. Radical Storage is this crazy new app that basically works kind of like Uber or Airbnb, except in the dumbest way possible. Instead of Uber letting you rent someone's car or Airbnb letting you rent someone's house, this lets you rent someone's closet and put your luggage inside. Yeah, people are renting out their goddamn closets now. The economy is bleak. Anyway, having figured that all out, the address on the map was still totally wrong, but we had apparently signed up to store our luggage in a local curry restaurant slightly down the road. So we went down the road, talked to the owner, and confirmed that he was doing that. That is a legit thing he does. We put our luggage in a goddamn baby playpen, and off we went to have a wonderful day in Kyoto. Now, we stopped at a quirky Japanese-Italian restaurant where we got some so-so rice alfredo. Then we went to Toei Studios, one of our final great tourist traps, and one of the definite last anime ones. Anyway, so as always, is Toei Studios a tourist trap?
この番組はヨランのスポンサーの提供でお送りします。
Okay, this one's kind of complicated. It is a trap because the main reason I came here was to have an awesome Kamen Rider Sentai experience, and that actually turned out to be one of the worst things about this place. It's not well maintained. But maybe it isn't a trap, as the experience was otherwise a pretty cheap thing to do, and there is one really terrific thing that completely justifies coming here. Okay, so Toei Studios being a tourist trap, I guess is mostly based on the price breakdown. So if you're just an adult walking into Toei Studios, you have to pay $28, but that's to do nothing. If you want one of the ride passes, then the price raises up to $42. If you don't get the ride passes, though, you can pay the rides a la carte for $6 each, and 6 times 4 is 24. So essentially, if you buy the ride pass, you're getting $10 off on doing the rides, or another way to think of it is you're getting 1.5 rides for free. Now, in my opinion, 3 out of the 4 rides are good, so yeah, it's worth it to save money and get the worst ride for free. Oh, and I should probably tell you guys that even though we arrived here at like, I want to say 1 o'clock on like a Wednesday, we were the only people in here almost the entire day. Like, I want to say 10 people showed up to watch like the ninja show at the end of the afternoon, and that was it. Otherwise, we had the entire park to ourselves, and that was a little nuts. All right, so let's get into what we did here. So you entered the studio for the gift shop. The gift shop was incredibly disappointing. One of the reasons I came here was I was kind of hoping there would be like some Sentai Kamen Rider merch, and maybe I could get some like rare Kamen Rider toys. I really wanted to get like a really good Kamen Rider belt, but the merch here was overall lackluster. They did have like some Kamen Rider themed like hair berets for women, and that was kind of it. I was kind of really let down by the selection of Kamen Rider shit they had here. They did have some random Godzilla shit here, which was weird because otherwise this park has no connection to Godzilla. Anyway, so we went upstairs to the first attraction, the Wooden Fortress, and I officially want to say this is the worst ride in the park, and I'm glad we did it first. It's basically a cross between a giant jungle gym / giant funhouse, and despite being in an air-conditioned gymnasium room, it was still very hot crawling through all this like wooden corridors and everything, and it was hot enough to make me sad and angry with it. I've kind of realized recently as an adult that I get kind of frustrated and angry when I'm in a maze and I just can't quit out of it, and yeah, the whole thing was uncomfortable. After that, we went to attraction number 2, the Super Sentai Kamen Rider Museum, which is technically included with the price of entry. So, okay, so this is the big question of the day. Is the Kamen Rider / Power Ranger Museum a tourist trap? Yeah, sadly it is. Being here was mad depressing. I would qualify this less as a museum and more of a storage closet for old tokusatsu uniforms. While it's amazing to see all these historical toku suits preserved and like in a room somewhere and a couple of their bikes, they're unfortunately sitting in this dusty old linoleum room that has very liminal abandoned shopping mall energy. And what's worse is that the suits are pretty jam-packed in here, so you can't really like even appreciate them all. Like, they're also right next to a very large backroom space, so I want to think that they could space these guys out better and make this a much better experience. Maybe have some interesting factoids here, maybe have some games. This place could be fun, but it's just not. It's a complete tourist trap, and it's overall one of the most disappointing places I've visited on this trip. I want to say this is maybe the number 1 disappointing tourist trap I've been to, in terms of it actually being a thing, but being so much worse than advertised. Now, after that, we went outside. We briefly stepped through a Meiji-era movie set, and then we went out back to check out the 1-1 Eva. Now, I was very impressed by the 1-1 Eva sitting in a pool of anime-accurate nasty red water, and climbing up the top of the Evangelion was also very fun. While we were climbing it, there were a bunch of cool anime factoids on the walls and the stairs, and my friends kind of gave me some shit for not stopping to read them, but it was still 120 degrees outside, and all this info was basic noob shit that anyone who watched the first episode of Eva would instantly know. I sat in the plug, got my picture taken, and because it was 120 degrees, my picture looked terrible. I looked like a disgusting melt man melting in the sun. Anyway, I kind of realized that I looked terrible this entire trip, and now that I'm back in America, I look normal again, and I'm wondering what's up with that. Apparently, I was suffering from some sort of 120 degree weather fluid heat retention phenomena, and that sucked. Anyway, after that, we went to the first of the 3 good rides at Kyoto Park, the Ninja Mansion of Ninja Secrets. This is a fun house escape room activity modeled after a classic Ninja Mansion, where you get stuck through a series of funhouse rooms that have really obvious ninja escape exits. Now, I think I was really good at this because I've seen enough tokusatsu shows and enough ninja shows in my day that I kind of borderline rushed through it, and I kind of regret that now after the fact because I'm pretty sure if I hadn't rushed through it, my friends would have floundered in here for hours, and I could have just sat in the air condition watching them suffer. But no, I had to take the initiative and escape. The next good ride at the park is the Ghost House. Now, I actually give this Kyoto Ghost House a ton of credit for being one of the creepiest haunted houses I've ever been to, just because it was quiet. I don't know, I've just never been to a haunted house that was this quiet before. It also had really intense and accurate vibes of like being like an old Japanese horror film. I don't know what it was, maybe just all the practical effects, but it really did look like I was walking through a 1970s horror film. And then the final good ride was the balloon sword course for kids. Now, we did this even though we weren't kids because we paid for it, but I actually thought this ride was great. Like, we had like a big sword and we got to like hit a wooden man with it. And over the course of the activity course, we got a bunch of balloon swords, and I kind of love the balloon swords. This balloon sword is actually one of the most solid balloons I've ever owned in my life. It survived the trip back to America and everything. I hope we never pop it. I hope it'll last forever. Now, after that, there was only one thing left to do at the Samurai Park, which was a stage show about the story of Gallant Jiraiya or something. But we missed the 1 o'clock show, so then we had to linger there and wait for the 3 o'clock show, which I want to say by this point it was probably 2, so we had like an hour to sit around. While we sat around, we ended up waiting at probably the most magical place in the entire park, the last Evangelion cafe in Japan. So I want to just put this into context for you guys. When I lived in Japan in 2011, Evangelion 2.2 had just come out, and EVA was pretty much everywhere. EVA is like this historical landmark anime in Japan that like held strong throughout the 90s as a major cultural pop culture touchstone. And even back then, I remember EVA was just everywhere. There were EVA stores. There was even like an Evangelion pop-up bar in Kabukicho, but somehow nowadays, even though the Rebuild series has just wrapped up and Studio Kara is still going strong with everything like G-Quux and Shin Kamen Rider and Shin Godzilla, Evangelion seems like it's slowly, eventually fading away and dying in the Japanese consciousness, which kind of bummed me out. I mean, looking into it on Google Maps real quick, it looks like there's still about 5 Evangelion merchandise stores still holding strong between Osaka and Tokyo, which is probably a big deal because I remember back in 2011 there was like one crazy YouTuber who claimed he could live exclusively on like Asuka licensed Evangelion products. But yeah, today we had lunch and hung out at the last Evangelion cafe in the world, and it was wonderful. I ate a giant Hawaii-style shaved ice, and overall I was just really happy being here. I was kind of impressed that they have exclusive Evangelion Samurai versus Ninja items here to stay on the Samurai Village theming, but yeah, otherwise the only thing we got here was the shaved ice, but I don't know, this was just a really peaceful place and there was something comforting about being here. Probably all the Shiro Sugisu background music synced perfectly with everything we were doing in here, but yeah, I was just so happy coming here. So then after that, we watched the Jiraiya show. It was okay, and it was kind of nice to see a semi-life tokusatsu performance, and then we left the studio. I'm overall satisfied with Toei Studios as a whole. Ironically, I enjoyed the 3 rides in the Evangelion Cafe the most, but I guess I have to say that some parts of it are just not as well maintained as the others, and that's why it's a tourist trap. I think it's just kind of out of whack. I think the price is too expensive when you consider that for just like an extra $30 though. I could have had an extra day in Universal Studios Japan. Alright, so after this, me and my friends had a minor argument. Even though we had a time limit to get our bags and get out of Kyoto, my friends were upset that we had gone all the way to Kyoto and not done any cliche touristy shrine hopping, which quite frankly, I've done a bunch in the past and they've done a bunch in the past, so I don't see why we had to do it again. Anyway, as we were walking home from Toei Studios, we passed the Kyoryugen Shrine, home to the statue of Miroku, who I guess is the monk that the Miroku from Inuyasha is named after. So we went there and we saw that. Now, it was a very cool, very holy place to go to, but overall, I just found it slightly not as cool as a random statue across the street of Gintoki Sakata from Gintama. Now, yeah, across the street, across from the 5,000-year-old shrine of Miroku, was a random statue of Gintoki from Gintama in front of a Lawson. So after this, me and my friends had a huge argument after this, because while I was completely unimpressed to see the 7,000-year-old statue of Miroku and the holy shrine where it was held, I was so stoked and borderline moved to tears to see the statue of Gintoki. And I don't know what to say here, but this was a very choice A, choice B kind of situation where I had to choose between a 7,000-year-old statue of a stranger that means literally nothing to me, that I've never heard about, that I've never seen before, and that I'll never see again, versus a statue that is probably less than 7,000 years old, but of a man who was basically like a father to me and has entertained me so heartedly since the time of the Nintendo Wii. I don't know about you, man, but seeing Gintoki randomly on the street just filled my heart instantly with joy, whereas paying to see the statue of Miroku was cool and all, but I was mostly upset that I had paid money to see it, and then when I saw it, I felt nothing. Maybe I'll never think about it again, maybe I'll think of it next time I watch Inuyasha, but I mean, if the question is 1-to-1 which made me happier, Gintoki statue 1,000%. If the question was what was the more valuable memory, once again, Gintoki statue. That random Gintoki statue kind of made my day. I'm sure there's a historical reason that the statue of Miroku has survived the past 7,000 years, but I just don't have an emotional response to that, whereas seeing Gintoki fills me with nostalgia and joy. Anyway, that was the end of that day. We got on a bullet train and went to Atami. Okay, the series is almost over. We're going to Atami, and that's the end of the videos. So, yeah, next one is the last one. Hope you guys enjoyed all these. Later.